Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Dude with the gun, TJ. Um, Today we're going to talk about how to handle a pistol properly. There's all different types, from revolvers, semi-automatics. There's a multitude of different weapons that you can actually pull into the pistol class, but today we're going to talk about a semi-automatic pistol. First three rules I would say are, when dealing with a pistol or any firearm, you always want to make sure your weapon is safe. Firearm, gun, gat, whatever you want to call it. Pull it back. We're going to check the chamber. Just make sure there's nothing shiny in there looking back at us. Now, something like this, it's your standard Glock 45, nothing fancy, your everyday tool. But those three rules are always going to be: keep your finger, booger, hooker, pointer, whatever you want to call it, fun finger, keep it off the trigger. I always like, when I'm holding a weapon or I'm dealing with anybody holding a weapon, I don't want to see any meat in between the trigger guard. Safe for you, safe for me. It's not a big deal, but it's something that if we train ourselves with trigger discipline, we don't have to worry about it. For myself, it's so bad that I eat with my trigger finger out. Everybody laughs, thinks it's funny. It's a way of life. So we've shown our semi-automatic pistol. We'll go to something not so much different, operates the same. First thing, we're gonna clear it. Well, we can't clear that one because the safety's on. Click the safety off. Oh, there's a round in the chamber. And that's okay, because that's my everyday carry gun. Now, something like your FNX 45, once again, we're gonna drop the mag. We're gonna clear the weapon. It's clear. But pistols don't always have to be just something that you can tuck in your waistband or conceal. We have a different type of pistol. It doesn't look like a pistol, but it is a pistol, 9mm. We're gonna clear it, look down the barrel, good to go. Second rule, dealing with pistols, holding pistols, whatever the make, model, brand, type, action, and we'll discuss all that later. It's actually not pointing it in anything that you don't intend to kill, harm, or maim. And our third rule is, don't put your finger anywhere on the trigger until you're actually ready to fire. It's not a toy, it's fun, it can be exciting, scary even. But when you talk about pistols, you have to know what you're doing, or not be afraid to ask somebody for help. So for instance, we'll go back to a Glock. No, we won't go to a Glock. We'll go to something different. We'll go to my friend the Canic. Excuse me, the Walther PDP. A lot of guns, they all have names, but I don't like to share the names of my guns with people I don't know yet. So we're gonna clear it. We're gonna slide it back. We're gonna lock the barrel. So our first rule, finger off the trigger. But if you notice, there's no safety on this weapon, either side. The only safety you ever really have is your finger. So as long as we keep our finger off the trigger, the gun's not gonna go off. Similar to my Glock. Once again, no safety. Your finger is your only true method of safety. Now, when we get back to our Springfield Prodigy, we have a lovely little, if you can see that, a lovely little safety right there. So when the safety's off, we can rack around, do whatever we need to. But when the safety's on, nothing happens. It's a, I don't want to say idiot switch. Well, depending on who you talk to about me, idiot switch. Whereas with our FN45, you have another little safety, a little red dot right there. It's gonna tell you if it's ready to fire or not. Always making sure it's clear. So they're just little things that each gun has little quirks, little nuances that make each gun different. But since we're talking about how we handle a gun, we've gone over the safety steps. Now, shooting is different. Shooting can go from fun to home defense. If you're having fun, you're going to the range with your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your whoever. You get out there on the range. It depends on what you're looking to do. If you're looking to practice, working on your stance, your grip, how you hold it, that varies person to person. Kind of like if you tie your shoes or you don't tie your shoes. I'm not a big shoe guy. I'm not a big bag guy. I'm a gun guy. I'm dude with a gun. For me, I like to grab my weapon, pistol, firearm, kind of like I'm giving somebody a handshake. I slide my girlfriend or boyfriend in, depending on what day it is. I like to wrap my hands around, get a good grip, a good purchase for those that like to shoot, and just a good grip for those that don't like to shoot. I'm going to use my sights to align my target downrange after I've gone through the entire checklist to make sure that I'm safe, the guy next to me is safe, and if it's a bad guy, well, I'm really not worried about their safety at that point. You're in my house, and hope you can say cheese when you see the flash. So we've talked about our purchase, we've talked about our grip, we've talked about our stance, we've talked about the 3 rules. Once you get there and you're ready to actually fire or practice or take someone out, if that's the case, God forbid, we need to talk about our fingers. A lot of people really don't think about how much your fingers play a role when it comes to shooting. Well, I always train people to use your finger as kind of a rule or a guide. Everybody has that little bend, the little wrinkle, or in my case, chicken fingers. I never like to shoot down here. I never like to put my finger on the trigger down here. Because when I go to shoot, it's going to jerk the gun one way. But then if I use the tip of my finger and I shoot, it's going to force it to go the other way because the control is lost. So I like to use the little pad on my finger and line it up directly with the trigger. And it helps me to stay on target, helps me to squeeze, not pull, not jerk, but squeeze the trigger. That lets my round stay on target, center mass every time. The next thing I'd like to talk about, or I guess get your opinion on, would be something along the lines of dealing with the recoil. If you've ever been to the gun range, your first time at the gun range, you always have that one person that when someone's shooting, they're jumping. Took my mother-in-law one time to the gun range and I thought she was going to jump out the building. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just like with anything else, you have to get used to it. You have to, practice makes perfect. You have to take the time and calm yourself and get to a place where it doesn't cause you to react in such a violent way. When I teach my students, or anyone for that matter of fact, once again, we've cleared the weapon. I tell them to aim down range, and it doesn't matter how you grip the weapon, firearm. You might like to interlock your fingers. You might like to teacup it. You might like to one-hand it. Really up to you. But when you actually get into the stance of shooting and you're getting ready to pull the trigger, I notice a lot of people anticipate. So before the shot even goes off or goes down range, they're jumping, they're jerking because they're trying to anticipate the bang, the smell. I want it to be a surprise to you every time. I want you to be surprised when you squeeze the trigger. I want you to have fun with it. Hell, after I get done shooting after 3, 4, 8, 12 hours, there's nothing better than the smell of gunpowder. It's like if they made a cologne like that, I would buy a gallon or 2,000. So we've talked about a lot of the steps when it comes to shooting, trigger discipline, finger placement, recoil, safety, but there are other things that come into play when you are actually shooting. For instance, you're shooting, bang, 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 your gun runs dry. If you have a gun that blocks the slide back to the rear, well, you're like, okay, what do I do now? Well, there's a little button right here. It's a trigger. It's a magazine release button. That's going to allow you to drop your magazine, and eventually you'll get comfortable enough where you can do it without looking at it. But when it comes to reloading, simple as bullets always face forward. So if you're at the range and you're trying to force your magazine in, it may not work. And it depends on the weapon, because I have seen some weapons where the magazine will always make it in and people will force and force and force, and then it doesn't shoot and they're just looking around crazy. I get it, because if you're not used to it, it's going to be, it's uncomfortable. Kind of like talking in front of people or dancing, being that first person on the dance floor. It's like, should I, shouldn't I? What I will say is that practice makes perfect. Once you get to a place where you can take your gun apart, load it, unload it, zero it in, and you're just putting bullet through bullet through bullet, you'll get comfortable with it. But with that being said, let's say you're shooting. You have multiple malfunctions that can happen. You can have something called a failure to feed, which is nothing more than you're shooting and the bullets don't come out the magazine, clip, whatever you want to call it. Well, with the failure to feed, you need to know what to do. You need to know how to drop the magazine. You need to learn how to clear a malfunction. So this is something that a lot of shooters call stovepiping. It doesn't look right, doesn't feel right. Something simple as this in a bad situation can take you out the fight. So let's say we're shooting, bad guy, range, this happens. What I like to do is drop the mag, rip it off, round comes out, I can put another magazine back in, rack around, and I'm back in the fight. So that all comes with training. That all comes just like driving a car. When you first started driving a car, something happened, power steering went out, windows wouldn't roll up. I know I freaked out because I didn't want to mess up a car or mess up anything that I couldn't pay for. But one thing in the community of people that shoot, like to watch gun videos, whatever it is, everybody is always willing to help as long as you're willing to ask a question. There's no stupid question. Nobody's going to laugh at you. Hell, somebody might show you their gun or show you how to fix your gun and be like, hey, you want to shoot my gun? You want to shoot both my guns? So just know there's no way to cover every pistol, every type, every action, every bullet with this little 5-minute video. But you all ask the questions, we'll do the best we can to get what it is and get it out to you. Hey, thanks everybody for stopping by again and checking out some of the toys. Hope it helped you. We'll get out soon and hopefully put some lead down range and show you some more pistols in action. If you got any questions or you want to see something, let us know, because that's really why we're here, to have fun and be safe and show you all really, what these can do for you or for anybody else you know. Y'all be good now.